A very good morning to the pre-service teachers of MGSE and to our invited discussion panel guests from 3 different schools. The university acknowledges the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditional custodians of the land on which we work and learn. We pay respect to the elders, past and present, and the place of Indigenous knowledge in the academy. My name is Tiong, Seah, Professor in Maths Education at MGSE. Welcome to this Maths Education webinar that is being hosted by MTeach students for MTeach students. Through this webinar and future ones as well, I hope that our pre-service teacher candidates can benefit from the opportunities to hear from and interact with even more practicing teachers. The importance of contextualizing theory in practice cannot be underestimated indeed. So to my friends, Kate, Anessa and James, thank you for accepting our invite and for spending your time this morning to share with us your practitioner knowledge and experience with us this morning. So I will now hand over the proceedings to the capable hands of our student hosts for this session, Loren Easterbrook and Nasser Cura.
Okay, hi everyone and welcome to this webinar. My name is Loren and I'd also like to introduce my colleague Nasser, who will be helping facilitate this morning. This webinar brings together 3 mathematics leaders from schools around Victoria who will share their perspectives of math leadership and advice for us as pre-service teachers on how to position ourselves now and into the future for effective mathematics leadership. Over the next hour, we will hear from each of our panelists who will speak for 10 to 15 minutes. During this time, you are very welcome to post your questions in the chat, and there will be an opportunity for a Q&A session after the presentations. And we will be recording the session, so feel free to leave your camera off if you prefer. So I would now like to introduce our first panelist, Kate Durling, who is here representing the primary sector from the Mornington Peninsula. Kate is currently a grade 2 teacher and learning specialist at Red Hill Consolidated School on the Mornington Peninsula, where she has taught for 20 years. Kate has been involved in the school's leadership team for the past 9 years, including as grade leader, middle school leader, mathematics team leader, and now part of the executive team as a learning specialist. She has also been a casual tutor and assessor in primary mathematics at Monash University. Her interest has always been in the teaching and learning of mathematics, which has included the writing of some open-ended maths task books. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Loren. And thank you, Tiong, for the invitation. It's lovely to be here today to share a bit of my story, and hopefully you can take something away from it, beginning your journey into teaching. Okay, so I'm in control of the slides here. Let's go. So being a leader of maths education in schools. My name is Kate Durling. I'm a grade 2 teacher. I'm a learning specialist this year. And as Loren said, I've been a numeracy leader at my school for quite a few years. Today I'm going to share with you a little bit about what it's like for me as a numeracy leader in a rural regional school. However, it's still considered metropolitan because we are still in lockdown. I'll explain to you a little bit about my school, its culture and structure, a bit of my background and journey of how I got into this position, what I've done along the way that led me here, what is the role of a learning specialist, what does a numeracy leader involve, some tips and a little bit about the requirements of being a teacher at the end. So a little bit about my school, Red Hill Consolidated School. It's down in the lovely hinterland in Red Hill, between the beautiful bays. It's a consolidated school because back in the 70s, quite a few smaller local schools joined together and consolidated into the one campus. It's a beautiful property. It's set on about 15 acres. Surprisingly, we have about 620 students, and that means about 26 classes, approximately 35 teachers. There's 5 specialist programs. There's a mixture of part-time jobs, part-time and job share teachers as well. And we have the Tutor Learning Initiative with teachers in that role. We have 8 education support staff, 1 principal and vice principal, 2 learning specialists. And just to get a bit familiar with the environment there, that about half the students travel by bus. I think there's about 6 buses, and that deliver them to and from school from around the peninsula. The rest are by car, a few within walking or bike riding distance. So that may be a little different to metropolitan schools in that context. We've got some unique features at Red Hill. We have staff that came to the school at the primary school level. Students who have nieces and nephews attending, teachers that went to high school with other teachers. In my first year teaching, I taught a student who is now also a co-literacy leader, so that was interesting when they first joined the school. Teachers who have children that attend the school, parents who attended as students, and now their children do. And we've even had a grandparent who taught, who now has their daughter teaching and a grandson attending. So it's a strong community with a lot of history. There are still a lot of new families that make their tree and sea change down to the area, but we've also got a lot of families that have generations of farming in the local area, whether it's the apples or wineries, etc. And we've got families that commute when possible to the city daily. So it's quite a mix of families down there. We have a typical structure of around 6 teachers in their first 3 years as a graduate at our school. So we're always promoting and employing graduates every year. And there's also a mixture of teachers that have been in the school around the 20 years and a little bit longer as well. So this may or may not be unique or quite typical to other schools. I've taught there for my whole 20 years, so I'm not sure about how that compares. These factors or challenges, or just part of our culture, and that might depend on who you ask, but I've never changed schools. So it's a culture and a community that I certainly enjoy being part of. So I'd just like to go through the structure of my school at present. This is where I am in terms of being a leader of maths here in Red, a numeracy curriculum coordinator. So I started in the classroom, obviously, for my first 5 years as a teaching staff. I went on family leave and returned to the classroom after about 5 years. And then a year or so after that, I became a team leader in the grade 3 area, which was about 10 years ago. I've been a maths leader for around 7 or 8 years, and this is my first year being classified also as a learning specialist. So a learning specialist is a relatively new role created by the department in recent years, and its intention is to keep experienced teachers teaching in the classroom, but also in a role that mentors and supports teaching and learning at a whole school level. For me, I have a grade 2 class 4 days a week, and 1 day of the week is out to work with one other learning specialist, and also meet with the executive team, with the principal and vice principal, and we work on addressing teaching and learning for our whole school. So being a numeracy leader, I work in a team with other curriculum PLC leaders, and PLC is professional learning communities. So every school usually has a team that has leaders in these curriculum areas. So there's a shared role of the literacy coordinator, which is a grade 2 teacher, and actually a grade 6 teacher as well there. Myself and another learning specialist, 2 leaders, and we have a wellbeing coordinator who is a full-time teacher, not in the classroom, and they are in a leader of the student voice and agency team. So these roles were all identified as a need to address our strategic plan for the school and achieve our annual goals that are set with the department. So this is where our focus has been in recent years. So what is it like to be a leader of maths at my school? Well, I really enjoy it. As a primary grade level teacher, it's very challenging to be familiar with all the curriculum. So we try and get a balance within all of our teams, a mix of experience and skill sets and interests. So we have, in my team, I have lucky to have the literacy curriculum leader as well. So we have a strong interest of teachers in literacy and the humanities area, and myself with numeracy. We have graduates and experienced teachers as a mix as well. As a maths leader, the more I talk about and share with staff, the more it energises me and inspires me, because I can see how it empowers other teachers and how we can work to build together to build confidence in all teachers with the teaching of mathematics at our school. So what does being a numeracy leader involve? So here are just a few of the tasks involved in being a numeracy leader. And some of these responsibilities are also a part of involved in being a learning specialist. So everything from being responsible for the budget to buy resources for the school, to attending PD to improve apply best practice, involved in the school strategic plan, curriculum and planning documents, analysing data and getting teachers quite proficient with the data is a big area and focus at the moment, and basically just advocating for mathematics at a whole school level. So getting started in your graduate years. When I think about my journey as a teacher, I certainly didn't have a direct plan right at the start. But over a few years, I became more familiar with the culture of my school and how things are planned. I began to see how the school develops the strategic and annual plans to improve the needs and meet the needs of students at our school. So being a graduate is obviously not the same for everybody. You may get a full-time ongoing, you may have a temporary or contract position, you may have to change schools after a year or two, and you may get thrown into something that you weren't prepared for, or you think you weren't prepared for, or you may have to wait, keep waiting for positions to come your way. So that brings me to my first set of tips is just to listen and immerse yourself in the school culture. Learn from experienced teachers, not beyond your team as well, as to why they do what they do. See where your interests lie. Show interest in the curriculum and the learning as a whole. And of course, being in your graduate years, you'll be required to complete a VIT. So perhaps focus your VIT with maths and the school priorities with maths. And that's a way to show your, I guess, dedication in your interest in that area. So after your graduate years, then what? So in about my third year, I had a parent of a child who was an academic at Monash, and we formed a relationship, and she wanted to use my grade for a project. So that was a great experience, and that led to me meeting Tiong, where we worked with some undergraduates in maths, primary maths as well. And we had students come along to our school to work with open-ended problems and maths learning. So that was, I guess, the beginning of this journey. I also participated in what was called Teacher Professional Leave back in 2004. Unfortunately, they're not doing that anymore, but there's always new initiatives coming out. And that involved working with a couple of other teachers to improve the mathematics teaching at our school. And we had a focus on open-ended questions and problem-solving skills to improve the mathematics learning at our school. So I guess that brings me to tip 2, and that is just to look for and create and explore opportunities as they come your way. Even if you're not successful at first, keep networking and building your connections. Get familiar with the department website, read department emails. A lot of people say, oh, they didn't see that email come through, but there's actually some good things that come through, good stories that are shared on department emails, resources, and just see what sparks your interest as they come up. Next steps as you become a proficient teacher. So obviously these connections and projects that I was involved with, many of them were incidental and may have been small at the time, but they kept developing my interest and passion for maths. So I was able to present at the Maths Association annual conference with my colleagues, and I worked with Tiong for a couple of years as a casual tutor and assessor. And he'll hopefully remember that I used to bring my 2-year-old along to our meetings, and she'd play with Hello Kitty toys and eat chocolates out of the vending machine. So there was quite a juggling act happening there. And every year, the principal would send out a survey to find out where we want to be in our teaching journey. And I would always say, I want to be a leading teacher. I want to be out of the classroom some of the time and explore that curriculum side of things. But it took about 6 or 7 years, changes in leadership, principals, different leading teachers coming and going. Another teacher was the maths coordinator, and they left. So eventually the structure of the school provided opportunity for me to apply for a learning specialist position. So it might just depend on the school you're involved with. It may happen quite quickly, or it may take a few years. So I guess that brings me to tip 3, is just to keep at it and keep building. If circumstances change, changing schools, etc., don't lose sight of the big picture. Keep chipping away at what interests you, and sharing your interests with staff. The staff that come to me and say, even though they're new teachers, they say, look, I'm really interested in maths. Tell me, share with me what your maths journey has been at this school. That's really valuable, and just keeping up with professional development. Okay, so this is a little bit about the career structure. And it's certainly not an absolute indication of how it works, but basically the process is you start as a grad teacher, which is in your first 1 to 3 years, where you'll complete your VIT to be approved for teaching. And you might like to be part of the PLC, Professional Learning Community Maths team at your school, and just getting familiar with the school's culture and history and goals. When you're completing your VIT, perhaps have that focused on mathematics, depending on what suits your school. The second stage is proficient teacher. When you're becoming in your 4th to 6th year, perhaps, you may aspire to be a grade level leader, have a curriculum focus if it in maths, so in that PLC team, and working on your professional development, and just keep broadening your experiences in that area. A highly accomplished teacher is around that 7 years plus, where you might become a grade or sub-school leader, such as a leader of middle school, depending on your structure at your school. This is where you may become a curriculum leader and attend leadership courses and get involved in PD and mentoring. And beyond this is what would be classified as a lead teacher, which is can be the learning specialist role, is where you have a whole curriculum focus and you're involved in the PD, mentoring, maybe some research for your school. You have that element of whole school focus and involved in the setting strategic plans with your principal, vice principal, and how you might achieve the school's annual goals as well. I've just included down the bottom here some of the resources. So AITSL is the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, where these levels of teaching come from. So that will be part of your journey, is to become familiar with those. The second link is where the performance and development process, PDP, is explained. After your VIT, your grad years, you'll be involved in setting goals, and that's a link for that. We have some really good resources from the department, the curriculum companion and the toolkit. And BASTO runs educational leadership courses supported by the department. And this is where I've completed my leading mathematics course and currently involved in a leading assessment program. So those links are there if you would like to access. So that's about all from me. I'm sorry, I hope that didn't go for too long, Tiong. Good. So I might just stop sharing that.
Wonderful, thanks, Kate. We're going to continue on, but if you have questions for Kate, you can address them to her in the chat, and we'll have time for questions at the end. And our next panelist is James Poon, who is representing the secondary school setting. James is currently the head of mathematics at Mentone Girls Grammar School and has been an educator for 20 years. He is an experienced senior maths teacher who has taught in various independent schools and is familiar with VCE, IB and GCE curricula. He has been involved in curriculum development as an examiner for IB and VCE. He is always looking for opportunities to enhance his classroom teaching and spends time contributing to the community in various ways. His areas of interest are teaching mathematics to high ability students and curriculum design. Okay, and you're on mute, James. Great.
All right, thanks, Kate. Thanks, Loren, and thanks, Tiong, for the invite. Yeah, just rookie era. I was just talking, and I've not unmuted myself. So yeah, just a bit about me. I was a civil engineer. Yeah, and I've been teaching for 20 years, like Loren said, and I was originally from Singapore and been teaching there for 7 years before I moved over to Melbourne. My story is a bit different from Kate. Kate is a stayer, I'm a floater. I've been hopping around. I think one of the reasons that I did hop around, I think I'm speaking to maybe the mid-career teaching pre-service teachers, is because I recognize that I'm not familiar with the VC curriculum. So moving around schools will help me accelerate that learning and familiarity with that curriculum and the like Kate said, the culture of the schools and the different schools. So that's part of my learning, I suppose, to integrate into the community. So some of the roles I've held over the years as an educator, I've been a staff trainer I've been teaching, but I was seconded to the Ministry of Education or the Education Department in Singapore as a staff trainer. So I look after the beginning teachers in 35 schools. That's a bit of me there in my previous life. And I've been hopping around schools. I've been going to, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that there's a long list of schools there. But I think important thing is you need to know why you're moving. Sometimes, for like Kate said, some of you may be going to a school as a part-time teachers. Some of you may be casual. Some of you may be full-time. But always know why you're teaching, how much you're learning. So I went from St. Anthony's Coptic Christian College at Frankston, Cairnsdown, and to Minaret College Islamic School, and then to MLC, Methodist Ladies College, and then to Quirit Baptist Grammar, and now in Mentone girls' grammar. So there's a bit of schools here. I think at different schools, I learned different things. And I established myself really at MLC, where I was there for 6 years. And I learned a lot of the in and outs of mathematics and the leading of mathematics. So I've been a learning consultant, a learning technology consultant at MLC, and also been an innovation coordinator at Carey for the whole school. And of course, currently now the head of maths. So rather than giving you Kate has given you the structure of the schools, but I think my sharing is more about us being an educator, us, how do I prepare myself to be an educator, and then to be a leader. I think as an educator, I think the love of learning is a must. That is the fundamental. I mean, personally, I feel that if I stop learning, I disqualify myself to be a teacher. And that's where I stand. So, I'm a very reflective practitioner, and I would love for every one of us to be really reflective. I mean, when you go out of the classroom, how do you feel about the class? Or sometimes when you teach the same year level again, like how can you do better in the next year? You're going to teach year 7, for example. So that's me being reflective. And hopefully that what I'm sharing about myself, I mean, you can pick up a few things for yourself to maybe use. An educator needs to be very, very good at building relationships, whether it's students, whether it's to colleagues, or whether it's to the management. I think an important thing that I learned is that the strongest school has the teachers working as a team. I mean, if the teachers work in a team, that department is very, very strong. If you have individualistic teachers, I mean, even though they may be very good teachers, it can be a bit disruptive for the department. So so we don't champion the hero, we hero the team. So we champion the team, sorry. So that's what I observe. So when we go into the school, be part of the team, be a team player. It's okay to say you don't know, because you know that there'll be people supporting you. Resourcefulness, I need you to be resourceful too. I mean, that's one thing that I gather from going around the schools too. I get a lot of resources. I get a lot of teaching approaches. I see many teachers doing their things, and I pick up the good practices. And that's what will prepare you when you become a leader, because that is what you need. I mean, the knowledge. I think it's more so in the secondary school when you teach mathematics, because you go from 7 to 12 and you have a different streams. You have general maths, you have methods, you have specialist maths. You cannot make a decision based on what you know. You need to make a decision based on the whole department, everyone's knowledge. So you need to have a knowledge of the whole curriculum, all the courses within from 7 to 12. So that is important. So being resourceful is good, and you will learn the approaches in each of the courses and the curriculum. So I highlight the next bit is I said skilled in various domains of a subject. Now, a lot of us are, sometimes I feel that we think mathematics as a subject, just maths. But maths is not just maths, it's just not content of mathematics, but it involves curriculum, it involves techniques, involves the technology, the use of calculators. So there's a bit of repeat there, the technologies like platforms, Desmos, and the pedagogical approaches from year 7 to year 8. How is it different from year 9 to year 10? How is it different from general to methods to specialists? So maths is not just content. I mean, teaching maths is not just teaching about content. It's really about us developing our areas in terms of all those areas, so that we can be effective in the classroom. I think most of you will know, I mean, you probably have the kind of experience where your maths teacher, if they just go into class and teach maths, it can be a bit boring, but what inspires you is the way they deliver it, the technology that is involved. It's not all fun, because maths, I mean, fun is a very subjective word, right? I can sit down and do problem solving for 2 hours, and that's fun to me, right? So, I mean, for some of you, knitting is fun, so that's not fun to me. So, but that's subjective. So, but develop that kind of the kind of domains, all the domains within the mathematics before we move on to be a leader. Now, so that's what I did. I don't have a leader title, but that doesn't stop me from contributing to the community. So I was involved in Microsoft Innovative Educator, so MIE expert, sharing the use of technology with teachers. Yeah, get yourself involved in the community. Get yourself involved in marking assessment. I mean, go to VCAR, do assessment. Get yourself involved in the discussion of the curriculum planning when they open it up. So in 2 years down the road, there's going to be new curriculum. So you may just want to go in and listen to what people have to say, or teachers have to say about the new curriculum, how they actually discuss and develop and design the new curriculum. So being a leader, like I said, it's not just the title, it's really about us acting like one sometimes. You don't have to be recognized officially as a leader to be a leader, and that's what I think. So contributing to community, helping out with the students, even if they're not in your classrooms. Now it depends on the school culture, right? But most of the school culture is such that it's no longer your student, my student, it is all our student. So feel free to chip in there. Now help teachers, help each other develop teachers' capability. So I mean, whether you're a leader in maths or not, help each other develop. It's not just in the content knowledge, but also in technology, in the way that we teach, the use of calculators for mathematics, and also the vertical curriculum. Because as you spend more time in teaching, you teach more and more levels. You see how the topics are connected. You see where each topic will lead to. Help each other out and help each other see how the connections. What are the connections for all the topics? Yeah, and so as a leader, you also have a greater impact on students' learning. So when you help each other, I mean, as a leader, you help the teachers, and the teachers help the students. And really, I mean, as a leader, you encapsulate all that mathematics has, or the subject has, rather. So when people look at you, they know, and they get inspired by you when you stand in front of the classroom. So that's being a leader. Also, as a leader, you shift the perception of learning in the community. How should I put it? Like, I come from I come from Singapore, and Singapore value mathematics. I mean, in the society, they value mathematics. So I've never heard of a parent say that I can't do maths, that's why my child can't do maths. But when I came over to Australia in Melbourne, one of the first parent-teacher reviews that I've got parents saying that, oh, I'm not good at maths, and that's why she's not good at maths, or he's not good at maths. It was a kind of cultural shock to me. But you shift the perception, right? So I just said, like, I never played footy before. It doesn't mean that my son cannot play footy. All right. I think it is important that we, as a leader, you shift that perception, because it is important. I mean, we need them to value mathematics so that they learn mathematics. Now, so that's being a leader. So what are the opportunities of being a leader? Now, I think Kate covered that a bit more detailed than I do. I just put here point forms. Strategic planning. You are involved in strategic planning, how the school is going to move, what are the programs that we can help the students with in terms of mathematics or in terms of a subject. You have external partnership, and that's one thing I learned about being a leader, is that we don't disregard people who are who are the external partner, I mean, that beyond the school, I mean, they're outside school, they are the ones who are actually have the time to work with us. I think it's more of a synergy, a partnership to help the students. So I don't see the external partnership or those publishers or those external help as a competition. I see them as a complement to our teaching, to our common goals. Of course, you have the opportunity to work with the school exec, like Kate, and parents and teachers. Parents is the one that is good and bad sometimes, right? But I'll tell you more about it. Because parents, I think, especially in secondary level, you must understand that maths is a high stakes subject. Because especially in year 11, 12, they use what I found that is like is that because maths is the prerequisite to a lot of courses, especially methods. Students become anxious, parents become anxious. So there will be a lot of, how should I put it? There'll be a lot of education and talk about how the child can move forward, how the parents can support the child moving forward. So that's one area that I mean, as a leader, I mean, in secondary school, you may find that take up a bit more of your time. And for teachers, working with teachers is great. You'll see a near retiring teacher working on Canvas and learning how to use OneNote. And that's amazing. It's inspiring. All right. Of course, you have also teachers who are a bit fixed mindset that they think they are the best. So again, how are you going to maneuver that and work with them to achieve the common goals? All right. So of course, opportunities that comes with administration, like a VCAR, and this year I've got, in the midst of everything lockdown, I've got VCAR audit. So VCAR audit our subjects in methods, spec, and further maths. So every year VCAR will randomly select some schools and audit their subjects. So what you need to do then is you need to show them what you have done and how you have catered to the students based on the requirements of the study design. So you need to be very familiar with the study design. And of course, Kate said that staffing is important. You want to put the right people in the right place so that they can achieve them. I mean, they can be effective. So that again, you have to think how you can maneuver it. And yeah, so whether the teacher can be successful in the area in teaching also depends on the staffing sometimes, I feel. So you really have to think through what is the best combination and best outcome for the school and for the staff. One of the things that I do constantly is analysis of results, because you want to know whether we are value adding to the goals, I mean, in my school or the students. So you want to look through the net plan results, their PET test result, and you want to compare with the school's result and whether we are actually adding value or teaching them, are they moving up the percentiles? So that is a bit of work there. Yeah, so a bit more of that. I mean, as you go into teaching, you realize that this is an important exercise. I mean, of course, within the classroom, you'll see the students' improvement, but at the department level, you have to look through the whole level from year 7 to year 12. And of course, the analysis of the VCAR, the VC results too. So that will tell us what was how good our program is, whether we need to tweak our program to cater to certain topics or certain area of the mathematics. So that's that. So like I said, I'm really into you as an educator before you become a leader. So continue to learn and build a reputation in school and eventually in the community. Now I think reputation as the teacher's reputation is very, very important. I cannot emphasize more, because you can be new to the students, but if they heard of you, you already win them over. you know, I'm a bit of floater around, right? So from MLC to Carey, they're pretty much like just one street apart. But when I move over to Carey, like half the students already know about me. So it just makes life easy for me to integrate into the classroom and build that relationship with them. So yeah, so reputation is important. Now, if your reputation is not good, the same thing will happen, because the moment that maybe sometimes the students see your name, they may start to get anxious. So it depends on how you build that up. So being a new teacher, the good thing is you're clean, you're neutral at the moment. So now start learning to build that. How are you going to build that? Go through relationships, right? Build that relationships, and your reputation will be fine. Of course, you need to teach well too. So yeah, like I said, gather as much resources and approaches as possible. So I want to stress again, maths is not just content. So you need to develop your craft, the curriculum, the techniques, the technology, use of calculators, be familiar with the platforms and the pedagogical approaches. So that is from me. I'm just gonna share. No, I'm not gonna play this because I think there'd be copyright anyway. So it's Flowers Are Red by Harry Chapin. I'm sure some of you, I'm showing my age anyway. This is one of the songs that I play to remind myself why teachers are important. Google that, play it yourself. It's on YouTube. Sometimes we reflect it on students. I mean, this is songs about a student or teacher has an impact on a student. But what I like to look at it is, I'm the child. Is my mindset fixed? Are flowers all red, or can I have many more colors for flowers? So as you journey into this teaching career, try not to have a fixed mindset. Try to continue to explore new ways. Learning is fun, teaching is fun. Just be open to all the possibilities. And I wish you well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, James, for your presentation. We'll have one more panelist speaking today, Anessa Quirit. So, teaching in Victoria since 2005, Anessa currently works in the government sector at a primary school based in Dandenong. Anessa's experience in schools has led her to work with new pedagogies for deep learning, as well as Edutopia for a series focused on innovation and learning. Among her current projects, Anessa is working with staff to develop a holistic school model around numeracy that is considerate of pedagogically innovative practices. Thanks for joining us today, Anessa.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. Just see if I can get my screen up here. Can everybody see that? All right, am I displaying properly?
Yeah, looks good.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. All right, so today I'm here to talk to you about math leadership, I guess, and a little bit about what it looks like in my school and my own experiences. And hopefully you'll find sort of like a running theme through, you know, some of the things that I bring up that have also been mentioned by some of the other panelists here today. So I'm going to actually start with a question, and I know that I'm talking to a room full of people, some of whom have had specialist training in mathematics, so just bear with me here. Can you think of a scenario in which 1 + 1 = 3? Yeah. Well, hold on to that thought for, hopefully you'll be able to see the relevance shortly. As for context, and speaking of which, a wonderful lady in the Department of Education who runs a Basto course by the name of Sharon Butler once said, data doesn't tell the whole story. For that, you need context. I work in a government sector primary school in Dandenong, and we have a diverse population of approximately 340 students, of which there's a pretty high percentage of EAL. There's a well-established philosophy and pedagogy, and we've been described as innovative and student-centered. 2021, however, has seen an influx of new and graduate teachers to the school. And currently our annual implementation plan for 2021 has 3 focus areas, and one of which is improving student outcomes in numeracy. We are undergoing some fairly big changes, which include an establishment of an instructional model of leadership, and we are in the middle of an internal review of our school-wide practices to ensure that there are optimal outcomes for students, as well as to increase our collective efficacy. I kind of feel like now's a good time to mention that all of the leaders, bar the principal, have a teaching time fraction in addition to their additional responsibilities. Now, the skills that lead to collective efficacy is kind of really where I intend to aim my chat today. And given the set of specialized skills that you will have received through the completion of your courses, I've got no doubt that you'll be a very welcome addition to the world of education. That said, I think back to when I completed training as a specialist 10 years ago, and I was ready to jump in and make those changes. Oh, gung-ho. What we, and I say we as a collective of specialists that I had networked with, what we found was that we kept hitting walls, right? You know, people, you know, procedures, you know, politics, the whole thing. Nobody wants anybody coming into their classroom to say, you know, hey, I've got some great ideas for you, right? And so what we actually really needed was a better sense of how to cultivate collective efficacy. So the concept of collective efficacy, defined by Bandura in the 70s and placed at the top of Hattie's factors that influence student achievement, with an effect size of 1.57, by the way, is essentially having the shared belief among staff that they can have a positive impact on student achievement. Now, personally, when I think of collective efficacy, I like to think of Covey's definition of positive synergy. And just taking a moment, if you think back to James's discussion, he mentioned the impact of synergy. So 1 + 1 = 3. When 1 + 1 = 3, Covey described it as working together to create something that is greater than the sum of its parts. I was fortunate enough to have experienced this firsthand without actually having a name for it very early on in my teaching career. There were 5 of us, all with differing levels of experience in life, teaching, and various skills. Some of us were more strategically organized. Others knew how to utilize technology efficiently. Some of us were more radical creative thinkers, while others were more logical and sequential. We each brought our own individual views on the management of 115 students in a composite 5-6 open learning space. It could have been a recipe for disaster. But because we had a shared vision, we fostered norms that grew a culture of acceptance and understanding, honesty, support, and willingness to take risks. We seldom found ourselves in a position where we asked of each other, can we? But more often found ourselves being able to ask, how can we? Okay, that is something quite powerful. If something was important to one of us and it aligned with our pedagogy, it became important to all of us. Okay, it left little room for ego. And as a result, we were happy to share in each other's successes. Okay, the team was very dynamic. every planning session felt like a worthwhile PD. Exhausting, but worthwhile. It is complex, it is multifaceted, and it takes time. So fast forward to this year. And with so many new and graduate staff, how did we, as a leadership team, begin to foster the approach of collective efficacy? In a word, really slowly. Now, professional relationships, okay? Put people first, no matter where you're at, you know, in your career path. When you put people first, deliberately work on building relational trust. Okay, as a whole staff, we established an agreed set of norms, and it's worth having a look at Argyrus's ladder of inference here, because what that does is it encourages self-reflection and not jumping to assumptions, and being able to take into consideration, you know, personal possible biases. Okay, it was up to us as leaders to get real and get comfortable with being vulnerable. Okay, this also helps to reduce the ego. All right, building your credibility through action, solid practices, and transparency. Okay, also helping to build your professional relationships are to really listen to what people are saying, and develop that habit of curiosity. All right, this also kind of helps to reduce the tendency to make judgments. And there is always something new to learn, or a new perspective from which to see. So look for the win-win scenario when you're confronting challenges, be it with students, parents, you know, teachers. Yeah, and take the time to celebrate successes that you witness in your travels. So, you know, when you're going around and making your rounds, because that talks, I think James sort of referred to that a little bit earlier as well. Now, building collective capacity. Our school has shifted away from a form of distributed leadership more towards an instructional model of leadership, which puts the focus on building collective capacity. One of the ways that we did that was to leverage into the power of PLTs. Okay, so PLT and PLC, Professional Learning Team or Professional Learning Community, was established. And a volunteer from each year level ensured that we would then have representation from every team across the school. We met on a fortnightly basis, and our overall goals were determined by our AIP, so our Annual Implementation Plan, which is something that was referred to by Kate as well. And what we were to do were to explore the needs of staff, build their capacity, and foster the concept of authorship, okay, in order to create a cohesive and holistic buy-in. So for those of us in the team who have a sound understanding of the pedagogy, we brought that lens to everything that we did to ensure that we kept an alignment between our practices and our pedagogy. And I'll take a moment and refer back to the idea of aiming for positive synergy, because it's a good time to bring up the advantages of diversity, okay? As I had said, it has been my experience that when you can bring people who hold different expertise, different ways of thinking, and alternative perspectives together, who have established that relational trust, you have the potential to create some really great things. One strategy that I wanted to share that is simple, it opens the door to collecting diverse thoughts, is through a simple use of surveys. Once the results of a survey are collated and de-identified, which is what we ended up doing initially to find out what the needs of the teachers are, the data can then be explored with members of the PLT. Great opportunity to start beginning to understand data analysis, asking questions in a safe space. And it's something that throughout your career is probably going to keep coming up over and over as you move through, is the importance of understanding how to analyze data. But before I get too off topic, in order to cultivate curiosity, build understanding of data analysis, and build trust through the transparency of that process without the fear of judgment, we used a strategy called noticings and wonderings when looking at the results. Okay, and we sort of kind of go back to that. When you're reflecting on and you're asking questions of data, it's an important skill, and it can be done by anyone, regardless of their level of experience. So for what it's worth, our results showed that teachers desired more consistency of practice connected to numeracy, strategies to diversify their teaching practices, and professional development related to data analysis to inform practice. What was really important is that you don't ever want to go into a room full of people and go, you all don't know how to read any data, and we're sending you to this PD. If you can get people to understand and realize where their gaps in understanding are, and they willingly, want to sign up for these things, you're probably going to get a lot more return. From there, information was presented to staff as a whole, and then more feedback was gathered that was used to address their needs and simultaneously inch a step closer to achieving our AIP goals. Another challenge that we've tackled has been revisiting our instructional model, as I mentioned before, specifically through the lens of numeracy, and that is still under construction. As a leader, our aim has been to ensure that across the school we have that optimal balance dedicated to the teaching of explicit skills and that transdisciplinary integrated maths opportunities, open-ended opportunities, and seeing where you can sort of infiltrate inquiry processes, looking for where you can find numeracy within literacy. So looking at all those interesting ways that you can cross through different areas of the curriculum and weave numeracy in and through that. What it might look like. I've put together just a simple diagram to display some of the initiatives and programs that are found at every level from prep through grade 6. And what I found in the early days of trying to create change as a specialist was the tendency for people when they are uncomfortable or at risk of feeling lost when change is introduced is to revert back to what they know. So from listening to the staff and their initial concerns about the process of change, it became necessary to proceed with caution and ensure that clarity and provide opportunities for building collective capacity and understanding related to our existing pedagogy. And this is where, as a leader, I'm on the lookout for and referring to exemplars of practice. This could be a great example of collaborative planning or a one-off classroom activity. And that, for example, has elements, could be a great ending to a lesson. My point is that providing opportunities to highlight the practice of others, that acts to strengthen rapport, it builds confidence, motivation to tackle new challenges, and over time, instead of knocking on doors to enter and see what's going on, you just might find yourself with increasing invitations to participate in classrooms across the school. So in short, no matter what educational setting you land in, please consider, the importance of aiming for collective efforts. We act through relational trust, credibility, authentic collaboration, and sharing the spotlight to highlight effective practice. I hope that was useful and helpful to you all in your journey. I really wish you all the best of luck, and I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Anessa. Thanks, James and Kate, for your insightful presentations. It's definitely been worthwhile, and it's good to see that you all bring something different but very similar. So what we'll do now is we'll go through a couple of questions that we have for you. We've got about 20 minutes or so to go through them. First off, we'll start with questions posted to Kate. Kate, if you're ready to deal with them. So Chris has posted a question. He wants to, I think you've got the question there as well, Kate. Can you see it? Yeah, so just have you made any changes to the maths program? And if so, has this been your own doing or sort of a whole school initiative?
Okay, yes, I have been involved in, I guess, designing and implementing a program at our school with a very, obviously, the curriculum at the core of that. So that began probably about 8 years ago, working with Vice Principal at the time and a couple of other teachers. So part of our, I guess, our research and talking to staff at that time was the need for consistency in teaching and for, use of common language, common teaching approaches, etc. So we did implement something with our school where we would have an alignment of the curriculum with skills that would help teachers to get a better understanding of the process and the skills involved in learning particular curriculum, and that is driven across the school so that a teacher, you know that your grade might have anywhere between 2 to 3, even more, even a larger gap in development. So it's important that teachers are aware of where a student is at and where they've come from, so where they need to go to next. So yes, we have been involved with that, and it was a team approach to that, and I guess that's taken a few years for that to evolve, and it's still evolving, but it's also the core of where we're at with our teaching of number concepts particularly. I hope that answers your question.
Brilliant, awesome. Also, we have another question from Adiola, and she's asked if, as a leader, what do you see graduate students needing most support in terms of their instructional teaching strategies?
That's really hard to identify one particular strategy, and I think this is what part of that first tip is, really listening and to what is happening at your school when you start. So if you look at the HITS, the high impact teaching strategies, it's really hard to pick one that perhaps graduates would need the most support in, but I think you've just got to get back to remembering that the students are the core and at the centre of all your teaching, and focus on getting to know them as learners. We do a lot of work on mindsets at our school, so that might be a place where you start is finding out how they feel about the learning of maths, whether it's through surveys, etc. And James talked about that growth and fixed mindset as well. Obviously using your data to find out where they're at curriculum based, but you could say explicit teaching, knowing the curriculum. You could say that collaborative learning is really important at the start of the year to get your children, your students working collaboratively. Establishing those things first is sometimes a priority over whether or not they actually have that explicit teaching. So I think it's talking to your colleagues about where they're at with their implementation of HITS and going from there.
Awesome, thanks for that, Kate. James, we've got a question for you. When training teachers, what do you look for and what do you try to encourage the most with them?
Thanks, Chris, for the question. It really depends on the teacher, but the fundamental is to be able to deliver the lesson well. Like I said, I want to look after the teachers, the young teachers, especially when they have they're building their reputation. So you need to be able to go in the classroom and deliver the lesson. I mean, whether you're doing it with the technology or not, it's not just about the fun. It's not just about the fun, but it's about delivering the lesson to at a level at a level where the students can identify with. It's like sometimes when we prepare lessons, we just prepare the lesson based on what we think. But you need to go into the classroom and feel the classroom, understand the students, and pitch the lesson to the students' level so that they can actually connect with you. And that's how you build that relationship too. Yeah. So that's the one thing I'll look at. Subsequently, of course, then we'll be looking at how to gather the feedback from students, whether you're actually delivering the lesson well. So that's where your relationship building comes in. And then eventually, I mean, just being a new teacher, assessment writing is important because that's where you get the feedback on how you are delivering the lessons. And the students may say that, oh, I've understood everything you say, but come to assessment, they may tell a different story. So that's where you have to evaluate how your teaching is in the classroom. So be a very, very reflective teacher in the first few years. So just keep improving on that, delivering the lesson. Yeah, thanks.
No worries. And I've got a question for you as well, James. So please don't go ahead yet too fast. You spoke about, I guess, in your leadership role that you do deal a lot with the parents as well. So, and that's, I guess, maths being so heavily sort of scrutinized at the secondary school level. But who do you find yourself, who do you find that needs more leadership? Is it teachers or parents?
It's hard to say because I mean, coming from independent schools, I mean, I've been in independent schools a few. I mean, these are, I mean, because the value mathematics, I mean, the value of education so much, and they really want the children to do well. So I see both though. I think we have to educate the teachers. I mean, in the independent school, suppose I think the high expectations for them to deliver, as well as, I mean, for parents, I think it's just really to, I mean, parents being parents, like they need to, you need to talk to them and tell them to just chill. Yeah, give time for students for the child to grow. Especially, maybe your question is like, I don't know. It really depends on the situation. But most of the time, I'll be speaking to the parents because parents get anxious about the child going from 70-80% to 60% when they started doing methods and special. And then you have to really educate them on the kind of scaling, the kind of expected kind of, well, we raise the bar, it's advanced maths. You need to give them, I mean, it's new topic, it's complex maths. They need to learn. And I can understand why, because most of the parents have not, some of the parents, in fact, most of them have not done advanced maths. So they kind of had the expectation that 80% should continue even when they're doing specialist maths. Yeah, it is that, I think, I don't know if I've answered the question, but yeah.
That's fine. That's you definitely have. I think parents need a bit more leadership sometimes too. Thanks for that, James. Loren has posted a question here for Anessa. So I don't know if you can see that, Anessa. Currently, what pedagogical innovations are you sort of more interested in at the moment?
Okay, so with pedagogical innovations, what I really love doing in the classroom is a few things. Using literature as a catalyst to jump into different areas of the curriculum and explore the breadth and the depth that you can get out of, you know, a single, you know, chapter book or a novel. For example, when my grade sixes, at one point in time, we started reading The Hunger Games. And we were also working with new pedagogies for deep learning at the time, and they wanted sort of a bit of a, Michael Fullen and his team wanted to sort of document the trajectory and how we might go about doing that. So if you're interested in looking a little bit more into that, you know, you can go and have a look at the NPDL documents that were published a couple of years ago. But essentially using literature as a catalyst is, you know, starting with a particular concept or an idea, an overarching project area, and then finding a book that sort of helps you to navigate through to the understandings that you want the children to have at the end. And there is so much room to weave in concepts related to mathematics. For example, in The Hunger Games, where I had a series of investigations where the children were asked to find evidence using the book, find evidence to justify where they thought the particular districts were. So in Pan Am. So by the time they were finished, you know, looking through the book and doing some research on the natural resources, the locations that were in, you know, pre-apocalyptic North America, you know, they were able to pretty much have some justification behind where they thought these places should go. And then, you know, find the boundaries. And then what they did was they created this 2D version using, you know, Google Maps and some of the other technologies and the information that they've referenced from the book. And then they were given the option to, if they wanted to, use Tinkercad, I think is what it was, or another 3D software to then create the topographical map of Pan Am. And then they were able to go and save that and then print it on our 3D printer. And then that sort of led into looking at things like the train ride from, you know, the district to the capital. And then we turned that into a mathematics investigation. You know, how fast would you have to be going? Does it match with where you thought, you know, the particular districts were before? So, you know, it's a really involved investigation. I've done that with Hunger Games. I've done that with Harry Potter. Currently doing that with, you know, a book called Prayer for the 21st Century. Which takes a little bit of a different slant. I'm finding a little bit more difficult to infuse maths there, but it can be done. You know, especially if you have a really great team around you who are, you know, willing to help you get through the nitty gritties and the muck and really get to a solution that, you know, provides engagement for the kids. And take a lot of your cues, as James said, building those relationships from your students. If you stop and you listen to what they're saying to you, then, you know, together, and, you know, feel free to ask them, say, I don't know, what do you think? You know, it was a great way through Hunger Games. I had a particular group of kids who turn around and were just like, I'm just super bad at math, so I can't do this. And through the book, we actually were able to go, well, you know, what you're doing is algebra, you know, being able to, you know, take an unknown coordinate with the information that you do have, and that's what that is. So anyway, yeah, so that's really what I love doing and I'm interested in. And Enigma missions, if you look up Wooranna Park Primary School, you can find out, and you feel free to email me as well if you have any other questions. But those are the two sort of areas that I really love. Enigma missions are very deep, personal, passion-based projects that children go on, very similar to, you know, an IB exhibition or a personal project. But there's no time frame limit on it. It's all based on the passion of the children.
Thanks for that, Anessa. I've also got another question for you. It sort of ties in well with what we're currently at in our class at the moment. we've got an assignment on big data, and you've touched on a lot of data analysis and the importance of using data to then direct, I guess, your teaching. Where do you find yourself looking for, or what data and sort of, you know, what organizations or websites or research papers do you find yourself looking at more so now when you're out in the teaching industry?
Okay, well, across the gamut, something that affects everybody from the time you enter school to the time you finish up is, you know, NAPLAN data. Okay, so looking at and understanding, the box and whisker plots and all the things. So panorama. So panorama, when you enter a school, there's the panorama report, and I think up to 10 teachers at the moment can have access to all the data related to your school, and looking at from attendance data all the way through, oh goodness gracious, that's like the place to go if there's sort of big data, and then you can break that down and look at cohorts and trends across time. But to, I guess, get to another layer of the question, it really depends on what you're doing. At the moment, another area of focus on our AIP has been the welfare and well-being with children, and currently I'm looking at what I'm sort of planning for the possible need for additional interventions due to things like COVID, and also the particular needs of families in the area. You know, we found out there's 11% of families in the nearby area who where the children are coming to school with no kindergarten experience. And that I got information from the AEDC or AECD, I can't remember. Yeah, AEDC. So the AEDC census, kindergarten transition information. Data doesn't just have to come in numbers. It can come in the form of words and stories, context. So depends on what it is that you're involved in, what your sphere of focus is for your AIP, and any sort of programs that you're sort of helping to lead or guide or part of. So, you know, big data, I would probably definitely go to your panorama. And then for more specific things, to looking at how you can help support students in the early years with their transition process, and, you know, help identify any particular gaps that are maybe not picked up by things like your English online interviews or your math online interviews. Then yeah, so that's definitely, hopefully that's gave you a bit of a glimpse into some places that I go to get data for things that I need at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Anessa. I'm sure that a lot of us students will be holding on to those words. Now, Chris has posed a question to, I guess, all three of you, and feel free to jump in, whoever would like to answer it. With lots of talks in the media about basic skills requirements and skills and drills, how do you address this with parents, and is it justifiable?
I'm happy to have a go of that one. I guess from our view at our school, part of the role is educating the parents as well with your school's approach or your school's focus and what your priorities are. And, you know, I've taught grade 3 for many, many years. So parents would always come in saying, all right, times tables, you know, they've got to know their times tables. And, you know, knowing the times tables or part of the multiplication facts is one curriculum area compared to all the others that are in numeracy as well. So, and I've certainly had grade 2 parents asking about that as well. And we like to reinforce the developmental process behind learning things like multiplication tables. Part of our development in our curriculum and teaching sequence is about teaching kids the skills of addition, facts, how the different strategies you can use, and then build on that for relating to multiplication, building on that to relate to division. So we actually have broken down the skills to be taught. And also highlighting with them that it's about the 4 proficiencies as well in numeracy, that it's fluency, which isn't just quick recall of facts, that it's using a variety of strategies, that there's the area of reasoning is so important, understanding and problem solving. They're all important parts, and just being able to reel off facts doesn't show a deep understanding. So I think hopefully to answer that, it is an education of the parents as well.
Thanks for that, Kate. And we're running a little bit tight on time, but we've possibly got one more question. If anyone else has anything to ask, feel free to raise your hand or yeah, ask away. If not, I'm happy to pose another question, more of a general question. In terms of your leadership roles, do you see yourselves using a lot of people management skills as well? Obviously maths is important and we're dealing with maths here, but how reliable are your people management skills in these leadership roles?
Maybe I'll add on to, I'll just answer that. I think very, very important. That's the short answer. Especially in mathematics and a high level. I don't know. My observation is maybe math teachers are a special breed, and also they have a very, very strong character. So it's pretty much like maths. Is I don't know, because maybe maths is black and white. It's either you get the right answer, you don't get the right answer. So even when dealing with staff, it needs to be very strategic. You have to be very diplomatic, because some of this belief has been helpful for many, many years, and it works for them. So when you are going to lead a team to another direction, for example, let's say the change of calculator, change of the textbook, or change of technique to use, it takes a bit of convincing. But the best approach that I feel is when it comes from the student. So some techniques, for example, that the students find useful, and they start spreading the word, and then the teacher get to know about it, and they'll get interested to know more about it, and that's when they become more open to learn, because they see the benefits of it, rather than us telling them to do this. So sometimes it's just easier for us to just teach our class and then let the word spread. So yeah, management skills, people skills, very, very important. Yeah. Someone wants to add on to that?
Yeah, thanks for that, James.
No, I fully support all of that. Absolutely. I had a big hill to climb because, you know, when I was growing up as a teenager, I was that awkward kid that didn't really understand all the social situations, and I had to get really good because I would just keep clashing and going up against walls, and yeah, so that's probably why I focused a lot of my talk on, helping to develop people and moving with them instead of trying to lead them and having them follow you behind. It's moving cohesively together that we've found that you've been able to, it's slower going, but you make a lot of ground. You cover a lot of ground, and, it feels better. It feels better when you can work with people, and you feel that honesty in the room, that trust, that sense of I can put anything out there because it's a safe space.
Thanks for that, Anessa. All right, well, that closes our question and answer session. Loren, over to you.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'd like to say a big thank you to our panellists for sharing their knowledge with us today, and also like to thank Tiong for organising this session for us. It's been really great to hear from all of you and have a chance to ask our questions. And also just thank you to everyone who came. I think most of you who are still here are from our class, but thank you for joining us and contributing to the discussion. And I hope everyone has a great day and happy school holidays.